Hi YouTube, it's your boy Grassy TV, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be checking out my full build guide for the physical Amazon in Hero Siege Season 6. The Amazon is a fierce and agile warrior, specializing in high-speed range physical attacks, allowing her to swiftly cut through hordes of enemies. With a combination of precise weapon strikes, critical hit bursts, and evasive maneuvers, she really excels at both sustained damage and rapid engagements. Unlike the magic-based classes, the physical Amazon relies on the raw attack power and weapon-based abilities to dominate the battlefield. In this guide, we're going to cover the best skill choices, style allocations, gear recommendations, and combat strategies to maximize your Amazon's potential. If you're looking to master the physical Amazon in Season 6, you've come to the right place. Now, before we get started, let's go through a quick disclaimer. This guide was created during the beta phase of Season 6. It is based on the content and mechanics available at that time. Please note that certain features, balance changes, or other game elements may be updated or modified as the game progresses towards its official release. The information presented here may not fully reflect the final version of the game, and some aspects could be subject to change. While I strive to provide the most accurate and effective build recommendations, future adjustments made by the developers may impact the certain viability of strategies or builds. Always refer to the official patch notes for the latest insights. All right, let's get started. So some pros and cons of the physical Amazon. One, you do have a built-in movement speed and dodge passive. This is really nice for these, run and gun playstyles, being able to just get movement speed, innately, as well as having a dodge passive. There's not very many places in the game where you can get just raw dodge chance, so that's really nice. You also have very high single target and very consistent clear speed. It's not going to be the craziest clear speed out of all the builds, but the single target is going to be fantastic, which really makes up for it. As well as later on, whenever you get a more built out in your gearing, you can run some different skills to really help with your clear speed. You also have a built-in life and mana on kill passive, as well as you can sustain your life and mana through leech. You also have a built-in traversal skill, which will be Storm Dash, and you can level with your main skill in the end game. So that's really nice as well. Now, you are a bit of a glass cannon. You're going to be a little bit squishy, especially early on. Generally, you're going to use a two-hander. It's going to make it a little bit tougher to hit your resistance cap using a two-hander because you don't have a shield to, boast some resistances, as well as resistances have kind of changed in Season 6. You need a bit more now. So it's going to be a little bit harder to get the reses capped out, and you're gonna have to skill swap for your clear and single target. This is gonna be a bit annoying for some people. I personally don't care. You just change your loadout and maybe do a weapon swap, as well as some of the in-game gear for this build can be very, very expensive, especially since a lot of your physical based builds are going to rely on having a very good weapon. And obviously, having some of these angelic weapons or these really high tier weapons are going to have a cost to them. So that can make them expensive. So let's talk about some of the skills for the Phys Amazon. First is Spearnage. This is what we're going to mainly be using for clearing. This is going to throw a bunch of spears in a circle around us that will, go out in every which way direction. Generally, we're not going to be using this in the end game until we can get ourselves a monsoon to be able to make them bounce off of walls and such. But this is a very good clear skill once you get beefed up. Until then, we'll be using Caustic Spearhead. You can use this for both clear and single target. You're just going to shoot a bunch of arrows in a straight line. You'll kill a target, and then you'll also see Envenom will proc off of this, which will make a massive poison burst go everywhere. It's really cool. For Storm Dash, this is our main movement ability. This is going to allow us to blink with a no cooldown. Later on, once we get access to a conversion from attack speed to FCR, this is going to feel really, really good. I do have some footage later in the video that will show me teleporting around, it's just a very, very nice farmer. You also have a ton of really good passives. Faint's going to give you that dodge chance. Chooser of this lane will give your life and mana on kill, and then Thrill of the Hunt's going to be movement speed. It's also important to note that this Thrill of the Hunt, this increases your movement speed without any proc. You don't have to kill something or attack something in order to get this. You just get it all the time, which is really nice. Now, if you are enjoying these build guides and would like to support the channel, I will have a donation link in the description of this video. Thank you to everybody that does donate. You guys are awesome. Now, let's go through the skill trees for levels 1 through 100. Starting at level 1, you do not have access to Caustic Spearhead, nor do you have access to Spearnage. So I prefer to level with a Strobe's Gift. This is going to be the best option until level 16, where we're going to level with Lightning Spearnage. I prefer this over going Caustic. So the best way to explain this is Caustic Spearhead has two different element types to it. You have physical and you have poison. Poison, unfortunately, as a damage type, just really doesn't scale that well. And then the physical side of it can be okay, but you really need some other stuff to make it kind of pop off. However, Spearnage has a lightning tag to it and it has a physical tag to it. And the lightning tag actually does scale pretty well in the early game. So, this is what I am choosing to level with. You can decide to go with Caustic Spearhead. You can decide to go with Spearnage as well, but maybe go the physical side instead of the lightning side. It's completely up to you. So I like to put 7 points into Strobe's gift, and then we're going to put some points in our attributes into energy just to have a little bit of early mana sustain. At level 8, we do respec. I choose to go to rebound because it doesn't require a throwing weapon to get the additional projectiles and bounces from the sub skill tree. So you can just choose whichever one works best for you here. They're both lightning attacks. At level 16, we're going to get Spearnage anyway. It's going to be a night and day difference. At level 16, we do respec one more time. We're going to put 1 point into Chooser of the Slain. This is our life and mana sustain. The rest we're going to split between Spearnage and Storm Dash to increase the damage of Spearnage without increasing its mana costs. So you can take whenever you hover over Spearnage, you'll see that it has a bunch of synergies on it. One of the synergies is our Storm Dash. So this will give us additional damage here without putting points into the actual skill to keep its mana cost low. Now at level 30, we're going to respec one more time. We'll put 1 point into Chooser of the Slain. This is our life and mana sustain. 1 point into Storm Dash for blinking. 1 point into Astrope's Battle Maiden. This is a active buff to give us a bit more attack speed. And then the rest we're going to split between Spearnage and Lightning Fury, which is this skill here. The reason that we do this is because Storm Dash is a movement ability. We want to be able to spam that ability. And having more and more and more points into it is just going to increase the mana cost. So even though technically I think this is a higher synergy than Lightning Fury, it ends up making more sense to put all of our points into Lightning Fury just so that we can teleport around for free, basically. So we're going to split between Spearnage and Lightning Fury. Once we hit level 60, I like to max Spearnage, max Lightning Fury, put a few points into Chooser of the Slain, the rest into Storm Dash or Rebound. And also, you can put 1 point into Thrill of the Hunt. That's this over here. This will give you some movement speed. This is optional just because you don't really have a whole lot of plus skills at this point in the game. So getting 1 point here isn't really going to do a whole lot, right? Compared to if you had, plus 20, plus 30, plus 40 skills, then it would actually do something. At level 80, we're going to max Storm Dash, put the rest of our points into Rebound. Again, the Thrill of the Hunt is an optional point. And this is really just finishing out our synergies for Storm Dash and or my synergies for Spearnage going with Storm Dash and Rebound. Now, once we hit level 100, there's a few different trees here. This one is our Lightning Spearnage. So if you're currently playing Lightning Spearnage and you're going to continue kind of playing with that through Hell 1, this is the tree that you want to use. I apologize if this is cut off a little bit down here. This does have 1 point into this Battle Maiden down here. But you're going to max Spearnage, max Lightning Fury, max Storm Dash, max Thunder Goddess Chosen, but 1 point to Chooser of the Slain, 1 point into Battle Maiden, 1 point into Thrill of the Hunt, and then the rest of the points that you have left over is really up to you. You can dump them all into Feint for dodge chance, or you can dump them all into Chooser of the Slain for more sustain. It's up to you depending on what you need. Now, once you switch into physical, right, this will be your physical Spearnage skill. The reason that this is different than the other version is because Spearnage has different synergies, and some of the synergies will give you attack damage, and some of them will give you lightning damage. If you're playing a physical Amazon or a physical Spearnage class, the lightning damage is going to do nothing for you. I mean, it might be a little bit of supplementary damage, but we're really trying to take advantage of as much attack damage as we can. Because generally at this point, we either have a good weapon that we are critting with, like we're getting crit and crit damage, or maybe we're using the Shadow Fury bow and still trying to get as much attack damage out of that as we can. So again, the best way to explain this is that we're trying to get as much attack damage. So we're only going to put points in synergies that have attack damage on them. So we will max Spearnage, we will max Rebound, we will max Feint, we will max Thrill of the Hunt, 1 point into Storm Dash, 1 point into Envenom, 1 point into Toxic Remains, 1 point into Strobe's Battle Maiden, and then the rest we can put into Chooser of the Slain. This is going to generally be for later in the game once you have a lot of damage, right? And you can get away with going for a physical Spearnage. Unfortunately, physical Spearnage just doesn't have the best damage on it. So it's really going to take a good amount of gear to start making this pop off. And then once you're able to get to that point, it's fantastic. But this will be later on, but we'll be using this. Also, once we switch into a physical build, here will be our Caustic Spearhead. So we'll max Caustic Spearhead, max Noxious Strike, max Jungle Camouflage, max Thrill of the Hunt. We're going to put 1 point to Envenom, 1 point to Toxic Remains, 1 point into Storm Dash, 1 point to Chooser of the Slain, and the rest will get into Faint. This is going to be around level 60 to 100. Once we get into our very first weapon, we can finally switch into this physical build. Now, sub skill trees are a new feature that came in season 5. We're simply going to click on the plus sign in the top right of these skills. This will take us into a new window that will have this sub skill tree in it. You can put 1 point in this sub skill tree for every 5 character levels for every skill that you have allocated. So you can see on this tree here, I have, 1, 2, 3. I have 3 skills here, 4 or 5. I could put points into all of these skills if I wanted to in their sub skill trees. So here are the sub skill trees that we're going to be using on the Amazon. The first one is Spearnage. This tree is going to focus on maximum projectiles as well as increasing their size and changing their animation to circle around you when attacking. The base animation for Spearnage is it shoots out in front of you. We're going to change that and to make it go into a circle instead, which is really cool. Now, Spearnage is only used as a clear skill in the late game gear section as well as some of the early leveling. Here's going to be our Caustic Spearhead. Now we take this tree focuses on maximum projectiles as well, giving them a chance to fork and circle monsters on hit for additional clear speed. For Storm Dash, this tree turns our Storm Dash into a teleport blink like ability instead of it being a traversal skill that jumps over walls. And lastly, we have Envenom. This one's just to get some additional auxiliary damage. I end up taking this top right node up here that makes the Envenom shoot out into big circles of poison going everywhere. It's really cool. This ultimately is used as a way to debuff monsters. Looking at our attribute allocation, when leveling, Spearnage can be a bit of an expensive skill, especially when you're dumping a lot of points into it. So you're going to want to find a source of mana or a source of mana on kill, mana leech, getting it on a charm, rings, gloves, amulet. Some sort of leech will really help, especially if you have a decent attack damage weapon. You could also find, since you're playing a physical lightning hybrid skill, you could also find sources of physical damage to put on your character early on, and then getting the leech off of that would be really helpful. Either way, I would recommend putting a few points into energy early just to have a bigger mana pool and to help sustain. So when we're leveling on Lightning Spearnage, we're going to put 2 points intelligence, 2 points vitality, and then enough energy to feel comfortable. The reason that we're going intelligence is because we're playing the lightning variant. Intelligence is going to scale the lightning. Once we switch into a physical Amazon later on, we need to respec our attributes to put 2 points into strength, 2 points vitality, and the rest into energy. I have to feel comfortable. Generally, by this point, you're probably not going to get any points in energy. You'll have a big enough mana pool, but in case you need it, that is available. The reason that we go into the strength version is this is going to scale our physical damage. And then once we move into the end game, we're going to dump all of our points into strength. We're completely a physical Amazon at this point. We should have enough life to sustain ourselves, and we won't need to put any points in there. Now, if you're playing hardcore, you might put some points into vitality, obviously, to get as much as you can to stay alive. All right, so the gearing section is really designed to give you workable suggestions on what gear to acquire at different stages of the game. You as a player need to look at your current gear and figure out what options make sense for you. Due to the addition of sub-skill trees, there will be item proc combos that are not listed here because they're honestly not really discovered yet. It's up to you to experiment. So while we're leveling, because we are using lightning gear, you're really going to be searching for rare or mythic items that match that lightning damage type, but you may come across some satanics that make sense to use, like Glimmer Fury. You drop a Glimmer Fury, you're a big happy camper. I cannot guarantee that you're going to drop any specific satanic, nor am I going to tell you to go farm for any specific satanic. That's a complete waste of your time. So my gear recommendations are not going to include them. Rune words, however, are nearly guaranteed as the bases are very common, and you can obtain any rune up to Vex from completing your Act 1 normal, Act 1 Nightmare, and Act 1 Hell quest, then using the prospect station in the top right of Act 1 to downgrade those runes to the ones that you need. This does not include the runes that you're just obviously going to naturally drop while you're playing the game. Be sure that you check the runes level requirement and the items level requirement so that you meet both of these. The endgame journal is a bit misleading when it comes to this, so always check yourself. So let's take a look at our weapon while we're leveling. Again, we're just looking for sources of all skills, lightning skill damage, lightning or magic skill damage percentages. You can get attack speed, life and minute on kill, intelligence, energy, ignore target defense or attack rating, some life and mana leech. All of these affixes are just good affixes to find on early gear. You can also go with a rune word option. So Sky Song or Malice, you can make a Malice and a one-handed sword. Believe it or not, Spearnage you can still use with a one-handed sword. So this is going to be a really good option. You can actually go on a Demon Slayer and pick up a two-handed sword from Demon Slayer, and it has three sockets on it. You can make a Malice by muling it from a Demon Slayer. It's very strong. I recommend you do that. The next option would be making a Sky Song and a bow. You can do that as low, early as level 29. Try and find one that maybe is a higher base and a D tier because you already have a D tier from the Malice. Looking at our offhands, same things. We're looking for just any of these affixes will work. And then for our rune word options, you can make a sky song in a one-handed shield if you're currently using a one-hander, right? So this could be an option as well. This will give you a couple of skills. It'll give you some attack speed. It'll give you mana. It's basically like the spirit of Hero Siege, if you will. I would recommend that if you're using a one-hander, that you make a Divine Contemplation. This can be made as early as level 21 on a three-socket shield. It gives you an absolute shitload of resistances, up to 48 all res. This will feel very, very comfortable while you're leveling through normal if you're able to create one of these. For helmets, same deal for the affixes, just trying to get any sort of lightning-related stuff that we can. You could also make a scholar. This can be used at level 27. This is plus one skills. You get some lightning skill damage, you get physical damage reduction, and you get some mana on kill. Really nice helmet. For chest pieces, same thing. Looking for any sort of lightning related stuff. You can also get movement speed on chests, physical damage reduction, or just any sort of damage reduction is really nice. For our rune word options, Shadow is really cool to get early. It's only level 17, takes two runes, right? A two socket chest, but you get 25% movement speed. Super nice to have early on, and 10% ignore target defense. Now, Astropos is also really strong to get early since we are using a lightning skill. You get up to four lightning skills, some intelligence, some lightning skill damage, and penetration. This is also really, really nice if you can make early. For gloves, we're just looking for, lightning skills, lightning skill damage, attack speed. Any of this stuff is fantastic on gloves. It's going to look the same for belts. For boots, we really want to prioritize movement speed. Obviously, moving through the game is important. Getting through zones faster will help you get through the campaign faster. So, really try to prioritize that movement speed. You can also find attack speed on boots, and this can be really helpful. Now, once you hit level 31, you can make quick steps. These only require a Yim and Adele, very cheap runes, and you get a shitload of movement speed on quick steps. You also get a ton of attack speed. You get leech. All of this is fantastic for our build. You can make a ghost if you want to. This will give you movement phasing and two skills. These are nice. It is going to require a Mal rune, and you're not going to want to downgrade a Vex rune to get a Mal rune. If you get a goal, I suppose you could downgrade that, but a little bit more risky, I would say, going for a ghost, just because you're going to need a higher tier rune in order to make it. So most likely, you're only going to be able to get into the quick steps anyway. For rings, we're looking for any sources of lightning related stuff, some attack speed, life on kill, any of that sort of stuff. Leech. Another big thing that you can get on rings is enhanced damage. That will really help with our transition once we get into the physical side of it. Same thing for amulets. And really the same thing for charms. The only thing different with charms is you can get sources of resistances. I think people miss out on helping to finish capping out the resistances with charms early on, as well as you can find like a source of mana leech or life leech. This will be really nice while you're leveling. You can find sources of like physical skill damage that you can use to proc the leech with. You can find movement speed. You can find intelligence, which is damage. You can find life and mana on kill. You can find attack rating or maybe dexterity. Dexterity is also attack rating. So that can really help if you're having issues with hitting. All of those are great options to get on charms. Now, Once we hit level 60, the most important piece of gear that we need to obtain before making the swap to a physical Caustic Spearhead is your weapon. If you have a doo-doo weapon, you're really going to do doo-doo damage. So you should already be in Nightmare by this level. If you aren't, get to Nightmare before swapping. I recommend you farm Act 1 Rat Den in the Outskirts of Annoya. It's just right out of the first town in the game to find bases needed to create some of these powerful rune words. Do not swap to Caustic Spearhead unless you have at least an S tier base rune word weapon. It'll make such a big difference, I promise. So, real quick, we'll kind of go through what weapons you can go for a Sky Song or a Ravager. If you end up finding an S tier If you end up finding an S tier 3 socket on like a sword or something that you can make a malice on, you could also do that and then switch to a physical spearnage. That could be an okay option while you're leveling up to 100, but you really want to try and get into a bow so that you can make a Ravager or a Sky Song. For helmets, since we are switching again into this physical side, we are looking for a 2 socket helmet to make a flesh ripper. This is going to give us a 15% crit chance. You're also going to get some life leech attributes, up to 20% all res. Flesh ripper is very, very nice. There's also a couple of satanic options that you might pick up. Out of all of these, I would recommend Judge Jury Executioner. It just has up to 50% ignore target defense. This is fantastic to get early on. For chest, we're going to be pivoting into either a Mayhem or a Gladstone Goose. Both of these are solid options. Gladstone Goose is going to offer up to 52 all res. Mayhem is just a bit cheaper to make, but it still has a bunch of resistances, life, and some enhanced damage. If you end up being able to find an early Cocoon of Berserker, this is the best offensive option that you're going to find. For gloves, I prefer siege breakers. Most likely, you're probably not going to have siege breakers by this point, so you're really just going to be looking for any other satanic that drops. But really, a mythic is going to be your best option here. Just getting a high enhanced damage mythic would be fantastic this early. For boots, quick steps, there's almost nothing better than quick steps early on for a physical build. They're just so damn good. They have everything that you need. Tons of movement speed, attack speed, leech. You just have it all. You could go for Hermes boots. You get a ton of all res on these, so I can see some reason why you would want to go Hermes over quick steps. For belts, any of these belts, if you find them, they'll serve you just fine, right? Butcher belt going to be insane with a 3 skills, up to 30 all res. Very, very good belt. Brute cord, this is crazy for a C tier, I'll be honest with you. You get 10% critical strike chance and 20% ignore target defense. That's actually kind of cracked for only being a C tier. So this is what I would recommend you go for. If you can't get either of these two, then I would probably go for just a thick like crit damage, enhanced damage, any of these things that you can get on a mythic would be really nice. For rings, you can go with double coat of wedding bands. You can go for double ring of the cow ravens. You could also try to work in a. You could also try to work in a. There it is, satanic eye. Right, this is going to give you a ton of all resistances, up to 30% all resistances. So any of these options would serve you just well. The best one here is probably Coda Wedding Band, just because you get up to 30% movement speed and just really everything that you need. But I can definitely see if you're trying to, get more and more crit strike chance and you have a bunch of crit damage charms, I can see where this Ring of the Cow Raven could actually end up being better than a Kodos. Ultimately, you want to move into either a enhanced damage ring. Enhanced damage rings will be insane, especially if you get some crit damage on them, or Elven Graces. Elven Graces are going to be this best in slot for quite a while. However, they did nerf the drop rate of Elven Graces in season 6, so they're going to be a bit harder to find. And once people catch on that they're harder to drop, they're going to become more expensive. So moving on to amulets. Really, at this point, you can if you find a Ravenclaw can be a good option, but you're really looking for maybe a solid enhanced damage amulet. You can get 150% enhanced damage on an amulet. It's insane. Things like crit damage, attack speed, any of that stuff is also really nice to get. The same thing for charms. Getting enhanced damage, critical strike chance, critical strike damage, charms, and just filling your entire charm inventory with these is going to make such a big difference in your overall damage. Now, once we hit the early game, so we're level 100, there really isn't any best in slot gear at this point. Most of these items could be swapped out with the strong mythics. Item decisions are really just going to revolve around how your character feels or direct power. You could put any combination of some of these budget items that we've talked about in these slots and feel capable of completing hell difficulty and begin pushing your difficulty. So don't underestimate how strong some of these mythic items can really be. We've already kind of gone through a lot of these from the Caustic Spearhead swap, but we'll kind of just brush through here. So weapons, again, we are looking for decent bases to make our weapons on, like a superior, exceptional, astral, or quantum bases. These are new bases in season 6. So these will have one affix, two affixes, three affix, or four affixes on the bases, respectively. So we're just really looking for 350 to 400 attack damage on a two-hander after we make the rune word. This is, excuse me, before we make the rune word. This honestly is not hard to hit. You'll basically find like a 250 ED bow and hit this number right here on an S tier. So not hard to make at all. Just obviously have to get lucky and drop one. If you go for a one-hander, here's what you would want for a like a one-handed sword or whatever it is that you're going to use. So again, make sure that you're using a bow or a crossbow to make a Sky Song or Ravager. You could also pick up either a RT XQC 4910 or a F4 tack rifle. Either of these options could also be decent in the place of these rune words. Maybe you're just having a hard time finding decent bases for these rune words. Then you could obviously dump into one of these and be just fine. For helmets, we kind of already talked about. If you wanted to get Flesh Ripper and the different options available here. Same for the chests. Same for your gloves. Try and get Siege Breakers. They get up to 25 all res, a bunch of ignore target defense. They're just really good, really, really good gloves. They'll stay on quick steps, right? Try and get your Bruce Cord or your Butcher Belt. Work on either enhanced damage rings or maybe try to push into your Elven Graces, whatever combination of rings you need to do here. Now, amulets, we talked about Ravenclaw being your best in slot here. Most likely not going to be able to get one this early, so you can go for an all-seeing eye. This has 3 skills on it with up to 50 resistances, or you could go for an enhanced damage mythic. These are very strong even early. Now, here's all the different affixes that you'll kind of want to look for on charms. Things like crit damage, enhanced damage, resistances, life percent, enhanced defense, attack speed, movement speed, life and mana on kill, or leech. All of these things are fantastic to find on charms early, as well as here's a bunch of satanic charms that I've listed out. These aren't all going to be early game buys, but there are definitely things to keep an eye out for while you're grinding, or maybe something that you might want to pick up early. Like a spine trophy give you 3 skills. You can get a Anubis, a Beetle of Life, a Hardened Soul Defender. Like the combination of these 3 together gives you so much freaking life. Now moving into the mid game, so moving into the mid game for physical attackers, maximizing your DPS is going to require you to balance the multiple attributes. So in this section, I'm going to detail out some of the different systems that you're going to need to consider to improve your DPS. First is your attack damage. This is the total damage of your weapon after calculations. So you can see in the example below, we can see that this weapon here rolled between 80 and 95 flat damage, and it rolled 91. This number is then multiplied by the enhanced damage value that's on the item. So you have 835% enhanced damage, and this gives us a total of 851 attack damage. This is extremely important to the damage of the Amazon. Thus, making rune words and bases with additional enhanced damage is going to greatly improve your overall DPS. Now, using the same example, you can see that the weapon base also has its attacks per second. This is literally attacks per second. It is 1.75 at a base value, and then it is multiplied by the attack speed on the weapon. This mod is a local mod on weapons. So it's directly multiplying this 1.75 to give us a 4.79 attacks per second. Now, sources of increased attack speed anywhere else, on gloves, on boots, on rings, wherever it may be, is percentual and is calculated using 1 APS. So essentially what this means is if you had 20% attack speed on gloves, this would give you 0.2 attacks per second because it's calculated based on 1 attacks per second. Another really important attribute is ignore target defense. This is really your bread and butter for managing your hit chance. You might notice that on attack builds, you might be missing. There'll be like a white X on enemies. Reason why is you don't have attack rating or your chance to hit them is too low. We can kind of get around this by having ignore target defense. Monsters will have a defense rating in which they can dodge your attacks. So currently you can have 75% ignore target defense. So you're going to want to get this max as soon as you can. It will greatly help with your overall damage, just being able to hit monsters consistently. Now, in order to scale your damage to really high values, you're going to need a way to, scale up your physical damage. And we do this with crit damage. So in Hero Siege, you can get up to 95 critical strike chance. And when you deal a critical strike, your damage is increased based off of your critical strike damage. There's currently no cap on critical strike damage or diminishing return. You can get, 800 critical strike damage if you can get that much. Another very important stat to manage is your deadly blow. This increases your physical damage by 50%. You can obtain 100% deadly blow, making it a monster of a stat. So 100% deadly blow is crucial when you're playing a physical related build because it's increasing all of your physical damage by 50%. It's a massive more damage multiplier. Crushing blow will also inflict monsters with armor break, stacking up to 5 times. Armor break will make monsters take 10% increased damage per stack. So crushing blow being 5 stacks will give it 50% increased damage taken. It's massive. Open wounds is really used more on tanky targets and bosses, but this will cause those monsters to bleed for 20% of your physical damage. Now, managing all of these stats is going to be vital for the overall DPS of your Amazon. So, one last thing is I do have it's a bit hard to see. Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to bump it up to more than that. But I do have the full damage formula so you can see exactly what you need in order to get the most damage from your character. Wait. So moving on to the mid game weapons, Monsoon is going to offer a lot of attack damage. It also gives you +1 to ricochet. This allows your projectiles to bounce off of walls and is going to be the best option for clearing. You can see it in the footage that I'm using that we are using the Monsoon. You can see it bouncing off of walls everywhere. That's Monsoon. Be sure to socket Moonstone gems into that Monsoon for more attacks per second. It's giving increased attack speed on the weapon. So, attack speed is a local mod, so it's giving you direct APS, very strong. You can also continue looking for an Astral or Quantum base for a Sky Song or Ravager, but you'll probably be able to afford a Monsoon before that ever happens. The Astral and Quantum bases with like double, triple rolls of ED are extremely rare. I'd imagine you'd be able to buy a Monsoon before you get one of those, but anything can happen. Now, before you obtain a decent amount of crit and crit damage, running a Shadow Fury, this is target farmable from Hell 1 through Hell 5 Uber Reaper, is a fantastic option. You get a ton of attack damage and a decent amount of attacks per second when you put a bunch of Moonstones in it. Reaper's Culling also makes you unable to miss your shots. So you no longer will need any ignore target defense or attack ratings. You can't miss, you can't crit, but that's okay because we can stack a shitload of enhanced damage, right? And still get a lot out of this because this bow has so much attack damage on it, right? Now, you could also go with an AK-47 with 6 Moonstones. This can be a good option, providing a bunch of crit and high attacks per second. A Glock 22. This is a new addition to season 6 and gives a it gives a cool laser beam to be able to like auto to aim at things. I haven't been able to directly test this, but just by looking at it, you get 4 skills, you get a really good amount of attack damage. This is also a one-hander gun, by the way. So it's stupid out of attack damage for a one-hander. You get movement speed, you get skill movement diminish up to 75%. Those of you that don't know, whenever you attack, you take a movement speed penalty. So being able to nullify 75% of that will make you so freaking fast. You also get 30% deadly blow, a ton of crit damage, extra damage to stun monsters, and 4 sockets, being able to put, moonstones or whatever in it. Like it's kind of fucked up. I ain't gonna lie. So Glock 22 could also be a fantastic option to pick up in the mid game. Moving on to helmets, Legionnaire is what you should aim to make. Chimera is a new rune word in season 6. It's meant to be an option between your Flesh Ripper and your Legionnaire. So if you find a skill, a two socket helmet, you could also go for a delirium. So again, Legionnaire is going to be what we're aiming to get to. If we find a four socket helmet for only a key rune, we can make a chimera, right? And if there's no other option available, we can go for a delirium. Another decent option would be a Nikita's, right? This is going to give us up to 6 skills. You get 40% deadly blow, a shitload of ignore target defense, and a ton of attack damage increase, right? So this can be a really good option. This becomes less valuable if you're running the Shadow Fury, just because you don't really need the attack rating, the ignore target defense. But if you ended up dropping one, this can be a really good option as well, or if you pick one up for cheap. For chess pieces, there's really a few options here. I prefer going for Executioner's Cocoon. It's going to give you the most amount of damage for softcore. You get 4 skills. You can put on, you get 275% enhanced damage, a bunch of resistances, double leech, attack rating, 4 sockets. It kind of has it all. This is your offensive option. Now, just below this, before you can afford the Executioner Cocoon, you have a Fortress. This only costs 1 high rune. It's a Zoe rune, which is only the first or second of the high runes. This could also get you 250% enhanced damage, as well as you get all resistances to life, physical damage reduction, 25% deadly blow. It's very, very, very good chest. Moving on, you could also go for an Azarius's Iron Thorn Breastplate. This is a sick option as well. I don't see a lot of people using this, but you get +5 skills. You get extra damage to stun monsters. You get all damage reduction. You get up to 50% all res and up to 4 sockets. This thing is actually really beefy. And you have a chance when you're struck to gain combat orders. So that can increase your life and mana. This is a fantastic option if you're playing hardcore. And the same for Heaven's Might. 4 skills up to 6 sockets. This can be a really good option early on. Even in the mid game, it's still really good. Now for gloves, we're going to try and want to find a brawler fighter mitts that have a high roll on them. These are really just your best option at this point, giving you up to 160% increased attack damage, especially if you are not in a crit version yet. This is going to be your best pair of gloves. Just below that, if you end up dropping or you can find a cheap pair of valuable boxing gloves, these can be decent as well. Otherwise, if you're in a crit version, you're going to want to try to find some crit enhanced damage gloves. Those are going to be really strong at this point. For boots, Crush Fleet's very strong. There's really nothing better here until we can get to the angelic rune words. You get tons of skills. If you get deadly blow, you get crushing blow, you get leech, you get ignore target defense. You also get this agility proc. This is going to give you a ton of attack speed and a ton of movement speed. Really nothing better here. It is a bit expensive. Berber, Zoe. Try and find a base, right? Like a crit damage base for this would be really nice. For belts, we do have Belt of Skulls. This is a decent option if you haven't found a good mythic yet. On mythics, you can get crit damage, you can get crit chance, enhanced damage, projectile speed. Any of that stuff would be fine on a mythic. Otherwise, you can also try and farm Hell5 King or Cool if you have the damage for that. Getting a Gladiator King's Belt is going to be our best in slot with 2 skills and up to 54 extra damage of bleeding monster and some resistances. So this is your best option. If you can't get that, Belt of Skulls can tide you over for a hot minute. Now for rings, Elven Graces are going to be our best option for quite a while. You saw that I just removed star leveling. That has been removed in season 6. So we are going to be using Elven Graces for quite a hot minute if you are in a crit version of the build. If you are not in a crit version of the build, you're using Shadow Fury still, look for just enhanced damage rings with some extra stats on them. So if you are in this crit version of the build, you can also try and go for an Azazel's Despair, like a +3 Azazel's Despair with an Anubis Soul Gem in it. The Anubis Soul Gem has actually been buffed. It just got buffed today, I believe. It is now 1 in 11,000 drop chance rolled 9 times. This used to be 1 in 15,000 rolled 8 times. So it's actually been significantly buffed. These are going to be your best in slot rings, but it is going to take you some farming to do. If you're in SSF, it's going to be kind of hard getting in Azazel's because they did nerf the drop rate of them and you want to get a +3. If you're in trade, they did nerf the drop rate of them. They're still going to be hard to get and they're going to be expensive because people are going to start to notice like, hey, these things actually don't ever drop now. So, and you only want to use the +3. Now, if you end up finding an Azazel's +3 and you're able to make your Anubis Soul Gemmed Azazel Despair, you will want to go to the Hell 5 Rakul in the Chaos Towers to farm out a Rakul ritual band. This will mirror your ring so that you don't have to go and farm another one. For amulets, we do have Griffin Claw. This is really just an upgraded Raven Claw. It's gonna have, crit chance on it, crit damage, right? If you're not in crit yet, you're still using the Shadow Fury, just find an enhanced damage amulet. Now, if you happen to drop an Equal Claw from Luna, this can be a decent option as well, giving you a bunch of enhanced damage and Rage Mania proc, some Deadly Blow, ignore target defense. This is a decent option as well. Now, for charms, physical stackers, the crit chance and crit damage are very important to your character's DPS output. Look for charms that have these stats if you're in the crit version. If you're not in the crit version, get as much enhanced damage as you can. It's going to make such a big difference in your overall DPS. Now, if you're super lucky, you can find some crazy charms like this one here, where you can double down on the crit damage and the enhanced damage. You're most likely only going to find charms that have one of these stats on them, but anything is possible, right? Now, with resistances changing for season 6, using a Tablet of the Awakening with 4 runes can provide you up to 34% all resistance for just a 2x2. So if you're capped on resistances, you can also put 4 elemental gems in this for a ton of all attributes. Now, these charms were listed in the budget section, but they can still be quite useful even in the mid game. So I'm going to leave these on the screen for a second for you guys to take a look at. Maybe you are in the season right now. You're like, oh shit, I don't have a Witch's Claw. I can fix my mana. Or, oh shit, I could use a Anubis' Ankh. This gives so much freaking life. Once we go into the end game, min-maxing a character, there's really a lot of variables to consider, as well as people have different playstyles and goals with their characters. Starting in Season 6, Hero Siege will have a new item called the Satanic Crystal. When queued with an item, it will either add a new affix or destroy your item. This takes min-maxing a character to a whole new level. As of right now, I do not have a list of all the possible corruptions, so my gearing recommendations aren't going to include them. This section will include a build I use for in-game testing, but can still be pushed further with the new Season 6 features or mythics that I was unable to obtain. So, looking at my recommended gear, this is really a result of my testing and refinement. I can confidently vouch for its effectiveness. However, the builds are always subject to personal preference, specific encounters, and evolving strategies. There may be more optimal variations depending on your playstyle, the zones that you're tackling, or the bosses that you're facing. Feel free to experiment and adapt. The guide serves as a strong foundation, but really the best build is the one that works for you. So, here is a quick look at all the gear that I was wearing. Important to note here that I do show that mainly our monsoon is for clear. We can swap to a Saint Amatiel's for a single target or a solo YOLO. It's going to be your highest just base DPS output. We are running a Gabriel's Broken Wings. This will convert our attack speed to FCR. This is what's going to allow us to teleport by wearing Side of the Gods. This is going to be our best farming option. And all of these charms, you can't see what they are, but these are enhanced damage and crit damage charms. And just as a to show you, I will hover over. This is all of the gear and the different options that you could go with in your end game. Looking at relics, really, it's twin blade, nunchucks, razor blade, butterfly knife. You're gonna want all of these if you're playing softcore. This is gonna provide you the most damage. You don't really drop these for anything else. If you're playing hardcore, you could go for cake. That'll give you some life. You could go for Triforce. This will give you up to 10% all resistances. So that's up to you if you would like to go for that. Moving on to potions, here's a list of potions that I recommend. First is Elixir of Death. This will give you enhanced damage. Rad Bull will give you attack speed and movement speed. Elixir of Unworldly Cognition. This will give you increased experience gain. A Witch's Potion will give you life and mana as a no ship button. Golden Blade Mysterious Potion will give you Magic Find and Gold Find. Empty Bottle of Vodka will give you plus skills. And Bottle of Rad will give you movement speed and phasing. For chest augments, Berserker Rage is going to be our most damage output. Tempest Strikes is going to give us the most attack speed. Lethal Tempo is kind of a in between where it's going to give you a decent amount of attack speed, as well as you get up to 56% critical strike damage at a level 7 augment. And then if you're playing in hardcore, Survivor Shield can be a cheat death. So basically, Berserker Rage if you want the most damage and you can handle this decrease in your all resistances. Otherwise, you're just going to go Tempest Strikes. For hero levels, I do have a whole guide explaining how to spec out your hero level tree since they do not provide anything but generally just some situational. Fuck. I have to go through this whole thing again. For hero levels, here's a quick guide on how to spec your hero level tree. Generally, this provides utility over character power, so it's really going to be situational. This video will describe different paths that you'll take based on your character situation. So I do have a link in the description for the hero level tree. Same for the glyphs in Hero Siege. All glyphs are going to offer utility to enhance your gameplay. Currently, glyphs do not provide direct player power, making their selection entirely preference based. So it depends on the content that you wish to engage with. So I will have a link to this video that will show you all the glyphs and what they do so you can kind of build your own strategy yourself. For the Mercenary, we are going to use the Act 1 Night Mercenary. Currently in Season 6, Mercs generally only have one purpose. They're just Magic Find Aura bots. This isn't going to change. So we're just going to try and stack as much Magic Find on them as we can. So here's a snippet of the skill tree that we're using. We just go for as much damage reduction, life regen, life per on hit, and armor. Here's a list of different weapons that we'll go for. Initially, you're going to want to try to get a Valkyrie. This is going to give you an attack speed aura. This will be really nice early on until you gain more attack speed from your actual character. Later on, you'll probably want to drop this bow off just because the attack speed that you're getting from it, it's going to be super diminished and it won't be necessary. You'd rather have the magic find from the weapons. You could also go for an Aura's Might. This will give you a huge resistance aura. I personally don't like having resistances on my Merc just because if he dies and I lose all our res and then I can die. So that's up to you. But these will be the options that you would go for. For chess pieces, you're going to go for either Uppies, Empire Military Plate, Mystical Lure. They're all going to have different price ranges. Mystical Lure with 2 sockets will probably be most expensive. Put Ists in all of these. Same thing for helmets. Put Ists in all of them. The bucket's going to be by far the most expensive because it's buffed in Season 6. It now has 5 sockets, more Magic Find. Harley Quinn Veil will probably be one step below it. And then Harley Quinn Quest will be fairly cheap. Either way, you'll put Ists in all the sockets. And same thing for offhands. It's in all the sockets. Leprechaun Greed will be the most expensive. It got buffed in Season 6, so I believe it goes up to either 5 or 6 sockets now with additional Magic Find. Just below that would be Novice's Tower with 4 sockets. It's got a crazy amount of Magic Find on it, honestly. So any of those would be just fine. Now, for loot filters, I'm going to show you how to make highlighting items easy. Press escape, go to options, gameplay, loot filter. Your screen's going to look like this. Simply just click on the physical attacker preset. This is going to highlight affixes on gear that you're going to care about as a physical attacker. And then on this same screen and the left side, you're going to see that you have the filter settings. This will be your filter presets. You're just going to select these presets based on what difficulty you're in the game. So if you're in normal, click on normal. If you're in nightmare, click on nightmare. If you're in hell, click on hell. I will have some loot filters that I will be making for each archetype in a video. So if you would like to use a filter made by me, you're more than welcome to, as well as I will have endgame filters available once the season starts. I may do one before the season starts. It's just like an initial, hey, here's a filter. As soon as you get to hell, here's a filter for when you get to, mid-game hell, things like that. I haven't fully fleshed that out yet, but I will have a link to that in the description once I have that video available. Now, here's some additional resources for leveling from 1 to 100, or if you're just a new player, there's definitely a ton of information here that I would brush up on. So first, I do have a beginner guide. This is going to go through pretty much anything and everything that you want to know on Hero Siege. It's a 2.5 hour video. I do have timestamps, like 100 timestamps on this video for you to navigate directly to the content that you need to learn about. A link to this is in the description. Same thing for the Season 6 patch notes. The patch notes have been available the entire time. They do live patch notes. So you're welcome to go check out what's going on for Season 6. The season is expected to launch on March 14th as of right now. This is not an official announcement just yet. I do expect that they will be announcing this actual start date soon. Again, I do have a link to this in the description, as well as there is a link to the official Hero Siege wiki. If you're a newer or a returning player, there's a ton of information in here. This entire wiki is actually maintained by some mods and players, so there might be a little bit of outdated information, but either way, there is some information in here that you can't really find anywhere else, so it's definitely worth a read. Now, before you do start in the game, be sure that you equip your companion. set up your highlight filter, configure some of your controls. These are here's an example of the controls that I'm currently using. I also suggest that you change your minimap hotkey to tab. This will make the minimap overlay permanent like PoE and Diablo 2. Make sure you swap your FPS to 60 FPS. Trust me, it's going to make a massive important difference on your performance. And then I will show you real quick how to assign skills to your skill bar. You just simply click on the spot that you would like to allocate your skill to, and then just click on the skill. So you can see I click on this, right click here, and then all my skills pop up. And I'm just going to click on the skills that I want to allocate. Or maybe I want to put on Vault on my queue. I can just hover over Vault here and press Q, and it will change it for me. Now, whenever you're leveling, there's a difference between additive damage and skill damage. For Lightning Spearnage, you're going to want to find sources of skill damage, right? Because it is a skill, it is a spell essentially that you are trying to scale the damage up on. You're not trying to increase the damage of your actual weapon. Additive damage will increase the actual damage of your weapon hits. So while you're leveling, you're going to be looking for sources of physical and lightning skill damage. Also, while you're leveling, there are some different places in the game that you might want to stop to find gear or get some XP in if you want to over level. So here are some different places like dungeons and just higher difficulty zones that you will run into in normal, nightmare, and hell. The main ones that most people go to are these same areas in normal. They've just, the same ones are in nightmare and the same ones are in hell. I like to go to the Rat Den in every difficulty. It's just a really good dungeon. Same thing for 3-3 or the Forgotten City dungeon. I pretty much go to that one in every difficulty, just run through it once. Now, questing, there are no required quests in Hero Siege to complete the difficulties, but I do recommend that you do your Act 1 Normal, your Act 1 Nightmare, and your Act 1 Hell quests. These are going to provide you with runes up to Vex, as well as on Act 1 Normal, you'll get a 15% movement speed charm and a 40% movement speed potion. These are going to be very, very nice for when you're leveling. Once you do hit level 100, I do have an early game progression tips and tricks video. This is going to go through a ton of different things that you can do at level 100. There's a full written guide available in the video as well, so you can see exactly what you need to do at level 100. And last but not least, we do have the Hero Siege Helper app available. There's a link to this in the description. This is honestly a fantastic website. There's tons and tons of information on there. He's working on a build simulator. There's damage formulas. There's just really a ton of cool information in here. I recommend that you bookmark it. It's just really nice to be able to go, oh shit, what key do I need for a certain dungeon? You can go look it up really, really fast on the website. Yeah, so I will have a link to all of my builds for season 6 in the description as well, so you can check out any more content from me. But with that, that's going to wrap up the physical Amazon build guide for season 6 in Hero Siege. Be sure to like and subscribe to the video to keep up to date with all of my future Hero Siege related news and content. Come check me out live on Twitch at twitch.tv/Graxy_TV. We are going to be leveling, I don't know what we're leveling next. I think we're going to be leveling an EXO, kind of testing that out. So we will be doing that live on the next stream. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video.